listening to CaveRadioBroadcasting.com. The words and opinions you are about to hear are of the hosts and do not reflect the management of CaveRadioBroadcasting.com.
Good afternoon and welcome to Down the Rabbit Hole. Today is Thursday, June 15th, year of our Lord 2017, and you're listening to a Gen Pop Media production. Well, Hoop's on his way, a little caught in traffic. Hooper's on the way in, a little caught in traffic, but I got Dave and Tony D.
Yeah, we're here.
We have a new gentleman behind the board. How you doing, man?
I'm good.
And what is your name? I see you on the show after us all the time, but we haven't, met.
Yeah, I'm Chris with Happy Hour.
Chris with Happy Hour.
All right.
Welcome to the Rabbit Hole. You are down there with us now, brother.
Yep.
I'm with a happy hour right now.
Feel free. Tony's always happy. Feel free to interject, insert your opinion anytime you want, or you can just play video games like Kenny does. Oh,
Yeah, I'm probably just going to be looking at my phone the whole time.
That's fine, too.
that's fine too. We're used to it. So I want to go over a few things. I mean, how's everybody doing? Then we'll go over a few things. I got a topic I want to talk about.
Yeah, before we dig into that, something kind of cool. You know, I've been the last couple of months, the old pissed off Dave has been kind of coming back.
I noticed that a little bit.
I
noticed that a little bit,
and it's affected people around me. So
oh no, hasn't affected me. If it makes you feel any better,
that does make me feel better actually, because I don't want it to. It's kind of hard, you know. I'm not perfect, you know. So I've been getting a little bit irate lately, and the old me's coming back and kind of lashing out. And I owe Nick a better apology than I gave him. I was really nasty with him, and it wasn't on purpose. And it's just been kind of bleeding through, I can tell, right? And then the news and all the stuff going on in the Philippines, and, you know, we have connections there, and just anger, frustration, you know, rage, and the stuff kind of, I can feel the old me coming back, and part of that's good, but part of it's not so good. So today, did you notice the verse of the day today?
I haven't seen it yet.
Well, very interesting, because I haven't even... And this is where I'm slacking, right? I haven't even really opened the Bible lately, and I've been kind of wrapped up. So I decided
this week,
just for the heck of it, this morning before I started my day, I got to work, got my coffee. I'm just going to check what the verse of the day is. What is it?
Ephesians 6:12.
Our mantra, right?
Pretty much.
I needed to be reminded of that. Go ahead, read it.
Yeah. Let's see. I'm gonna read out of the.
Your mic's off.
Oh, sorry.
Now you're good.
How about
Yep.
now? Check.
Yeah.
There you go. Check. Cash.
I literally
Check.
spent probably 10 minutes of the drive thinking that passage on the way up, because it's
I
the
needed-
motto of everything we do.
I needed a reminder, and I got it today. As corny as this sounds, on the Bible app of all
Dude,
things. Go ahead, read it.
but
okay,
I might be
so-
thinking of 5:11.
I'm gonna read from the Amplified version because that's my new thing. We've talked
Go
about
ahead.
it here.
It's
So
good.
it's Ephesians 6:12. For our struggle is not against flesh and blood, contending only with physical opponents, but against the rulers, against the powers, against the world of forces, this present darkness, against spiritual forces of wickedness in the heavenly supernatural places.
So I have to. I gotta thank the big guy upstairs for smacking
He's
smacking me upside the head
He's
this
knocking.
morning, and reminding me that that's what actually what we pump all the time,
Yeah.
what we say all the
Yeah.
time, why it is that we do what we do.
Yep.
And I kind of forgot that, sort of, which is weird because I harp
Well,
on it.
you know, dude. I've been watching a lot of Joyce Meyer. Okay.
Yeah.
Who I love. Okay. I got a thing for her. I got to admit it.
Well,
And
for her mind.
Yeah, for her mind.
Okay.
I mean, she
Clarify that, because
she really brings it across very well. It's very no nonsense. The way she preaches reaches me.
okay.
Okay.
Oh, that's a good one. The way she preaches reaches.
You like that? I didn't even
Yeah.
need
Someone
to
should
rhyme.
coin
It
that.
happens
It
by
just
accident.
happens, yeah.
It's just
He's an artist.
He's
Yeah,
a poet and didn't know it.
I am. But she was talking about there were two sermons. I watch her every morning as I'm getting dressed. And
That doesn't sound good.
okay,
Or-
well,
or-
as I'm getting ready for work, does that sound better?
better, yeah.
Okay. No, I'm not naked when I'm watching Joyce Meyer, Tony.
Well, that's
get
okay.
your
I
mind
am,
out of the
so,
gutter.
Yeah.
Well, I've got that
Um,
visual now, so
Yeah, get your mind
Did
out of
you
the gutter. We're gonna
announce
send you to
everyone
the
our new
girl show.
format?
Huh?
Nothing. Go ahead.
Okay, never mind.
So her first topic this week was talking about when you just feel like the whole world's against you, and it just seems like everybody's out to get you and everyone's out to piss you off. And the message was, if you think everyone else is the problem, you're the problem. And I was like, oh, wow.
Thanks, Joyce. Yeah, start my day off with a
I mean,
little
not that I was in that headspace, but I just really enjoyed that because, unfortunately, I happen to know a few people who think everybody else is the problem, and they don't get it. I mean, they've been doing this for 30 years.
Yeah.
And they just don't get it.
What do you say what do you say, Dave, to someone that I'm asking specifically about that comment you made earlier where you said, thank the big guy upstairs for putting this in front of me. What would you say to someone who would go, well, why do you think that there's divine anything in that? I mean, there's going to be a passage there. It's going to make sense to thousands and millions of people somewhere about
right.
So what? Who are you to be thinking that this is such a personal communication from God? Like, how do you respond to that?
Well, my first reaction would be to point out that they're being a jerk in the first place for minimizing my profound experience. But the next thing would be like, well, why do you think it's not? I mean, why would you think that it's not that? So obviously it could be any of thousands and thousands and thousands of verses could have been on there. And they all, of course, sure, you could argue they all would have some application for me at that moment in time. But given what what I've been going through in my head, which is a really busy place, that it just applied that I just needed that. I needed that reminder because I was starting to get in a area that I used to be into where, like, getting nasty, dude, and getting, like, the old me was coming back, and I got these demons gnawing at my back, and I'm just like, all right, I got to fend this off because some of the anger is justified, but it's been a little over the top lately. And
who's it directed at?
Whoever, not necessarily anyone specific, but look around, man. You look at Europe, you look what's going on there. Just widespread violence is going on. The situation these poor folks in the Philippines are suffering under, when you really have. It's literally just a political game that's being played, and all these innocent people that are there are being held as slaves, slaughtered, little kids dead in the street. I mean, after a while, this stuff can wear you down to where you just start responding with anger, and like it can get tiring. And when it starts affecting people around you, where you got to kind of. I just needed something to say, yo, dude, why don't you listen to the stuff you say yourself? The things that you tell people, like, hey, look, what we're really dealing with here really isn't there's things going on here that you can't see. We have to understand this to really get a grasp of what it is we're seeing play out. And these are things, like I said, that, I almost got to a point where I felt a little bit, not hypocritical, but almost... the way I explain it to others to help them cope with things, I'm not even taking my own advice. Yeah. And I was just kind of getting in a weird place. And, you get anger from all the situations. My brother starts, times of the year are very hard for me. It's really the whole year. But, specific times. And it just kind of started piling up. And
when did this start?
Well, it always is going on.
No, and I understand. Look, I know the answers to a lot of these questions, but sometimes it's good to just talk about the emotional side.
Yeah,
of all
I don't
this.
know. I think much of this year has been a little bit tough. And I kind of go through. I kind of get through it, but when I start responding with anger is when I get a little concerned because then it starts affecting people around you. And I don't ever want to do that. I don't want to. I want people to avoid me because.
How does it show up when you say when you respond in anger? Give us an example.
Like if I'm sitting there, we're having a conversation, like my wife and I, right? And I start going on one of my Dave, rants. Although it's not that she disagrees with me, but she's got to sit there and listen to that instead of me being more like I should be, calm, and I'm pissed because. And I think it's righteous anger, but I need to watch it because sometimes it can spill over. A perfect example is when I got all in Nick's grill, and he didn't even deserve it. He really didn't deserve that.
Now, does this come from the material
Well,
you researched?
he needed it. He just didn't need to get hit with a hammer that big.
But that's see what I mean? That's how I do it, and I need to watch that because
No, freaking Thor over here.
I know, dude. It's hard. I really battle that, but
Don't make Dave angry.
it's
and I'm just being devil's advocate here. So, is it possible that this anger is coming from somewhere? Is it from the topics you study or you're researching, or is it a problem with your boss at work? I mean,
no, it's not something it's not something so
or is it from
trivial
CERN?
as my it comes from CERN
Yeah,
because they've blown open the
literally
portals.
might be.
It actually
Thank you,
probably is, but no, it's just things start piling up. I don't deal with them properly, so I just start getting pissed because look, dude, they got people putting heads on sticks in villages, and these people are taking over the countryside in Europe.
But that's been going on your whole life. It's
think
been going on throughout all.
It's a little different.
It's been going on our whole lives. But
it's a little different now.
It is a little different now. But what's been going on our whole lives, at least it wasn't back in the day, it wasn't part of everyday media. And then you got people telling you, oh, well, that's just the bad ones. Islam's a religion of peace. They don't really mean to be killing these Christians. They're just trying to convert them, and they go a little too far.
It's not just Islam. I mean, that's happening.
But I'm saying, that's one of the
continents
big things that's going on right now is that they are repackaging something and lying to our faces.
Yeah, it just gets.
I'm sorry, Islam is not a religion of peace. If you follow it to the letter of their book, it is not a religion of peace. Now, are there many peaceful Muslims that are awesome people? Absolutely.
Oh yeah, absolutely. That's for sure.
But
these psychos that are out there following it to the letter and chopping people's heads off, don't try and dumb that down and for me,
Well, and again, I'm playing devil's advocate. The book you follow has some pretty radical suggestions in it too.
Yeah, it does. Yeah, it does.
Like,
Love your neighbor.
serve God, and if necessary, walk away from your family. Walk away, love Him more than your children.
Yeah.
I mean,
yeah, that's not chop your children's head off.
Right.
It's a little different.
okay, well then I'll pull up. How about being stoned for adultery?
Right, and that did used to happen,
Yeah.
but they don't say do it now. That's old news.
Yeah, that's old covenant, man.
That's old news, man. That didn't work.
It all changed. It all changed
Well,
when Christ watched.
It didn't work.
Maybe the moment has changed, or the time has changed, but the man behind that book that we follow was
Right.
the man behind that at one time.
Yeah, but it's not a perpetual commandment, right? It's not like keep doing this.
Can I ask a question about that? Serious question about that.
Yeah.
Is that the word of God
What?
to stone somebody?
It was a law,
Yeah.
wasn't it?
Yeah.
That was in
God said
Leviticus.
this.
He breaks down. He breaks it down
Oh, yeah.
everywhere. He talks about lots of. There's like 600 and something 20 commandments. Actually, I mean the 10 are famous.
So who presented these? In the question, let me get right to the point, just so we're not skating around here. The reading I was doing, we were talking. It was something about the statue from Noah.
The golden calf.
No, this is the one with the.
No, that would have been
It's the
Moses.
one. Excuse me, the statue of Moses with the horns. Okay, you know the statue.
No.
I was talking about the golden calf. That was
If you look up a
Moses.
statue of Moses, you'll see that he's got the horns on. I'm looking at it like, why would this be? So I started looking into that, where they said, actually the passage comes from he was horned, which in those times means his face was red from communicating with God.
That is true. There would be like a glow to him after he'd be in this little like tent-like thing up on the mountain.
Right.
And the story goes that Moses literally transcribed letter by letter the first 5 books of the Bible, which included Leviticus. So those laws about stoning and so many, the whole of the laws, all 600 whatever there are, it was to actually show that there is no salvation without the mercy of God. It's an unfollowable law on purpose. That's the that was the undertone, at least, that a lot of theologians talk about. Mm-hmm. But supposedly it's right from his mouth. But it used to be that, and that's why I think there's something, frankly, using our modern day terminology, there's something atomic in the energy, the nuclear in the energy that, like a light, the same way we get sunburn, the same way radiation leaves burns of.
Well, the Shroud of Turin shows this same kind of
what we see there's not blood. It's actually it's a photograph. I mean, something happened that was so bright, like a flash.
Some kind of radiation. That
something
was
they can't burned into
that
it.
They can't reproduce, by the way. They've tried, and they can't. So even with our technology now, they can't. But there was some kind of radiation. So I would think that if a person was in there...
I thought science had an explanation for everything.
Huh?
I thought science had an explanation for everything. That one's the...
We
can't explain it.
And then when
explanation?
They say it's a 7th century forgery, handed, whatever. But then you still the question, well, then how did they do it in the 7th century?
Yeah, there was this, I forget what you call that. There's a name for that type of, like, art. It's basically an art, It's not that, because they can't reproduce it. They can get close, but they can't produce a holographic image like that without actually staining the material somehow. They don't know the type of radiation, but it's some kind of radiation. So if someone was in there at the time that happened, they probably would have been cooked, because it's pretty powerful. And not only was that image burned by some kind of radiation, the body was levitating when it happened. So there's a lot going on there.
Do you guys ever get... so you were talking about how you've been angry.
Yeah.
Howard and Tony, do you guys ever get that way?
I was like that when I walked in.
Are you ever not like that?
Yeah, I was like that yesterday.
No, I mean, but I'm not I'm not talking because some dude cut you off on Telegraph. I'm talking about because of the things that we talk about and look into.
Honestly, just driving over here, I was thinking about that, which is kind of odd because there's an anger that's building up, and that's why I was thinking CERN. Okay, because that's been talked about for a while, right? But with everything that's going on, like Dave said, there's checks out there being written. Okay, someone's going to have to cash them.
Yeah,
this is what it's going to come down to because I don't think it's going to turn around. I don't think everybody's going to turn around and be happy.
Losing hope day by day that it'll ever turn around.
And it's everything just keeps ramping up until there's going to be physical violence and all kinds of stuff going on that it's almost unstoppable right now as far as I can tell.
Yeah, I think it's actually worse than what they let on. So they're not reporting. They're not reporting 80% of the things that happen every day.
Try like 99.
You know what I'm saying? Though it's a lot of things happen. You
the
just
clamp
you don't
on
hear about
society. If you think the world is effed up before you open up your eyes, when you like, from my perspective now, the clamp on the world is so certain. It's like your language automatically gives you the answer because I'm literally like the only thing that can break it is an act of God,
right.
Which is literally what is going to end up breaking it.
Going to happen
will be.
Yeah. That's why I just wanted to kind of throw that out there. And if I've rubbed anyone, if I've been hard to be around or anything like that lately, that's why. So I'm working on it. I'm working on it. I'm not a violent person, so it's not that. It's just words. But
do you think for you guys is the bulk of your upsettedness? Do you think it's over, or do you still think you have a long way to go?
I think it's going to come and go.
Yeah, because the thing is it's the process is ongoing. I mean, I'm mad. I'm just in control right now. The same things, nothing's changed. The things that anger me haven't changed. I'm just dealing with them right now and putting them in their place. And what happens is if you let your guard down, it's like he said, one piles on top of the other, and before you know it, you're losing control and you're just irritated all the time.
Yeah, you end up lashing out when you shouldn't.
And innocent people end up taking the brunt of your yell
at the kids, you maybe take it a little too far and yell a little too much.
Who's the anger? Who's responsible for it? Is it your fellow man? Is it Satan? Is it God himself? I mean, if this were if we had to put your anger on trial, who would be found guilty for it?
I think we need to clarify it's not anger, it's frustration.
Okay.
They're
Well,
different.
anger, upsetness, a negative.
But it comes from frustration. My frustration is the same as we talk about all the time.
Yeah, I think.
How do I get through to these people who are so brainwashed? And yet I still, I care about some of these brainwashed people, and I'm trying to get through to them. And it is so frustrating to see people I know that otherwise, if we don't talk about certain subjects, we get along awesome. And then the next thing I know, they're posting, transgender stuff on their thing or something that they're just totally off the wall that I disagree with.
Yeah, I gave up on that a while ago. I don't.
It's not just that issue, but it's everything.
I think it's. I think it's my own. For me, anyway, it's my own weaknesses, right? It's my own limitations. I can't always be. You can't always be in control, man. You can't always keep it in control. And it's not like I make it sound like I'm some kind of raving maniac. I'm not, right? Husband, father, career. I'm a normal guy, but it's. Some people might just consider this normal, as far as they're concerned. They're not hurting anybody. They're just kind of a abrasive kind of person. I don't like it.
Right.
I would rather be more gentle, more kind, more understanding. I'm losing patience.
Yeah.
That's really,
I understand what you're saying.
And I needed to be checked. It was like, and actually, my wife, she a couple times is like, you know what? Just be patient with those guys over there. Just be patient with this. Just be, she's absolutely right. I just need to be more patient. And that is not something I'm very good at.
I'm not very patient.
What about you, Tony? Where are you in the...
Well, I agree with Dave. A lot of things he's saying, it relates to me. I know what I think I know what he's trying to say. It's like you get frustrations. You can't control the things around you. I mean, hardly anything. There's chaos going around. And I'm not just talking about government. I'm talking about work, home, everything, right? Stuff goes on. You really can't control it. And when you start to get anger and frustration, you kind of do. I have a tendency, too, to say the wrong thing.
Yeah.
And, maybe I wish I was kinder. And, even like with kids. I'm going to bring up the thing with kids, Sometimes you'll yell at them, like, hey, didn't I tell you to do this? Or blah, blah, blah.
Yeah.
And, it's like, but I want to come home and say, hey, how's it going? And hugs and, fun, blah, blah, blah. But it starts to wear on you. There's a lot of things that wear on you. But that's just normal life stuff.
Yeah. Yeah, and you got to check your kids. But I think there's times when, if I have a rough day, whatever, and I usually am pretty good at insulating that from my house.
Mm-hmm.
I'll leave all that crap at work. I don't really talk about it, even if it's, it's frustrating. I don't bring that and trouble my wife with that stuff. She's got enough to worry about. But there'll be times when, you can I anyway can feel it. Like I know I'm getting out of line. I'm getting out of control. I feel it boiling over. And then but it's always with me, it's just my mouth. I don't hit my kids. I don't do that.
Yeah.
But my mouth, I think they might actually prefer being hit instead of dealing with my mouth.
I'm with you on that.
But then you feel bad after, and I'm like, God, that was a little bit too much.
I know that energy you're talking about. Sometimes I like to feed in. I actually like to be in that frame of mind on this show, but just one notch below unreasonable.
Right.
It's almost like a football coach giving a motivating speech. He can't be calm all the time. His job, if he's going to do a good one, entails that he sometimes get other people hyped up to care about something. Mm-hmm. So sometimes I embrace that feeling or ride it, but I'm with you. It got really old, and with Betsy, for instance, I knew there were times where she just want to talk about the kids and school
stuff.
And not have to hear about how, did you know the CIA was involved in the murder of blah, blah, blah. It's 3:00 in the morning. She's pregnant, and I'm...
oh my God, look what I just found.
I know, but in the beginning, it was literally like that where, I mean, it must have driven her,
probably
insane
drove her
a little bit.
Nuts, yeah.
Do you guys ever get caught up or trapped by a television set that's playing in the background where all of a sudden you'll hear something, you'll get sucked in, and you'll find yourself, it's like you got angry from kind of getting reeled in by a television set somewhere. Does that ever happen to you guys?
Anytime the news is on anywhere, I'll turn it off. I don't deal with it anymore.
What about shows or movies that have hints about what's going on that are hidden to the most of the population, but very
that's
seeable?
That kind of stuff kind of makes me laugh. That's why I love the Science Channel. Some of it's really awesome, but some of it's straight propaganda. And when I hear it and what they explain things, and I actually kind of get a chuckle out of it. Because I'm just like, oh my God, dude, yeah, you're really smart, you know. But that to me is entertainment because I know what's up. I know what time it is. So that doesn't make me mad. That's actually for me kind of funny because the latest thing now is the new popular term for guys like us is evolution deniers, right?
Yeah.
Get back into your cave, this kind of thing. That kind of makes me laugh because it's like, yo, man, like you know, really,
dude. I just finished the chapter on intelligent design versus random accident for the 401 book. There was no doubt. I mean, for 40 years, I absolutely believed evolution, and it was a belief because evolution is such a broad term. It covers a lot of things, from the origin of life to species making little adjustments to species changing into completely new species. And there's parts of it that I believe in that I feel has been documented enough to be certifiably true, which is the special theory of evolution, the speciation, the slight changes in little
adaptation is probably more
thank you. That's a better
accurate
word. The origin of life, we still can't reproduce it.
Right.
Period. We can't test for it. We can't reproduce it. It takes as much, if not more, faith to believe that somehow 15 billion lines of information just magically appeared out of the blue. It's like throwing up 4,000 Scrabble boxes and having Shakespeare play just neatly land readable. There's no doubt in my mind that we've been just fooled by this. And I was going somewhere with this.
You said you finished the chapter on.
Yeah, well, there's no, and the interesting thing I was going to say is from the minute this theory was thrown out there, which is about 1860, it really has been one of the most beautiful marketing campaigns ever. And all along the way, scientists, beginning right in the moment, making the exact same arguments they're making now, minus something we do have now, which is genetic research. We didn't even know what a gene was back in 1860. Now we know that simple cell was not simple, not even by a long shot. So all the arguments still exist against it all along the way. And all along the way, it was always presented as a certainty. And there's no decade where some unbelievable studies happened that proved it in any way, shape, or form. Only the opposite ever happened. Up to today.
Yeah.
And it's one of the greatest, except for maybe the popularity of Jesus Christ himself, I think right now the theory of evolution is the greatest marketing campaign in the history of humanity.
Yeah, even that seems to be kind of wearing it. The luster's kind of wearing off because I noticed a new kind of propaganda coming out that actually the thing responsible for life is dark matter. Isn't that interesting?
Dark matter is another name for literally the power of God. And here again, the reason that number keeps going up every single year is this theory that gravity is what holds us in place in the universe. And gravity is what holds also together a little nucleus with an electron or a proton. We know that's not true. It's electromagnetism. Like you're going to tell me that a basketball in Los Angeles is going to have a gravitational effect on a pea here in Michigan? That's what keeps... And if gravity can explain the orbit of these celestial bodies, it cannot explain how they got there in the first place. It would have to break all the rules.
That's funny that you mentioned that because I just had a conversation about. I was thinking about gravity specifically, and I don't. You know what I know about gravity is, oh yeah, that's what this is. You know, as I talking to somebody about it, and it's kind of funny because I was one of Nick's things that he had sent out something about the tennis ball spinning with the water on. You know, how the water kind of flies off when you spin. I'm thinking like, the Earth spins at how many thousands miles an hour, and the water just. And it says, well, that's because the water's so big. I said, well, the water's like molecules. It's like questions you have to ask. But as soon as you bring up something like that, people start looking at you like, what's wrong with you? It's gravity.
Whoa,
dude.
You're thinking.
It's gravity.
Don't think.
If it's bigger, then there's more gravity on it.
Oh.
No, it's 9.8 meters squared by me. That doesn't change.
Yeah, if you have a washer in your house, like a washer or dryer, and the cycle's done. It's done. Did its real fast spin, right? Where's all the matter? It's on the outside, on the edges. Yet on Earth, what's densest is the core. Like, why is the thin crust that shouldn't make sense if this is truly a gravitational situation? Because if the sun is holding the Earth in orbit, how the heck does a butterfly literally even get off the ground?
Right.
I mean, if you think about that, if we had been raised to think that what we call the moon today is a hole in the roof of the world, people would believe it.
Yeah.
I mean, they would just believe it. It'd be so easy.
Yeah.
And to try and come up with this crazy theory that it's actually an independent sphere 250,000 miles from here, people would go, you're wacko.
Yeah. Actually, there was a time that they'd probably execute you for thinking that. If you get too outside of the mainstream, like you're a witch or something, they'd, set you on fire or lock you away forever or whatever. But we've come so far.
That and the other one I was doing was a Stephen Hawking thing. I watched this video where he does an interview, and he's got the answers. Right then. I think he went through all the typical talking points. It's obviously an agenda-driven interview, right? He talked about global warming and all this kind of stuff. I'm like, that's but he had all these answers. And and I started questioning. It's like, really, he has to, and I asked somebody, well, how does he answer a question? Well, he's got his eye and he looks at something and it comes up and he forms these answers. I'm like, really, that's extremely fast.
Well, when you have an IQ of 4 million, then...
Well, you guys know where I am on Stephen Hawking.
It's pretty much where I've been, I think.
Yeah.
I think that...
he's a speak and spell.
Yeah, he is literally... I think at the end of the day, he is a man that... is it multiple sclerosis? Is that what he has?
I forget.
I'm not sure, but...
I think he just got multiple sclerosis a long, long time ago. Maybe he did something that upset the devil himself, and this is kind of his payback, is to be an instrument of his, and he's just in literally a prison or shell or checked out, and there's no... You're going to tell me that NASA in the 1980s made a device just for him, which would have solved millions of problems across the world, where...
But he's the only one to use it.
And they've never made another one since.
It literally... No, it's starting to exist now, where... the computer follows the optics of your eyeball. I actually studied this. I looked into it, and there are guys that claim to be out of the CIA that were in charge of recording and doing all of his public appearances, and they would pre-record all of his answers. But that's forget that for a moment, because you can't really prove if that's true or not. But here's what you can prove. You look at the state of software where it was in 1980, and somehow NASA jumps ahead 20-some years. And they never bothered to share this to the rest of the world, but they built a machine literally just for Stephen Hawking that would follow his retina. It would literally follow where his eye is looking on a screen. And
there's no screen, though, when he's talking.
Well, there's always a screen somewhere unless it's pre-recorded. But that's the way he gets information into a readable or listenable or viewable format is... He's got a software program that in one section of the screen, there are a lot of common words like the, I, we, you get it. the common words of our language. And then there's numbers and alphabet. It's like a glorified keyboard. And if a word is not in the... It works about as well as the autofill does on a Google search box. You start to type things in, and it gives you options of what your next possible letter could be. We've put codes into things. Like it's the navigation system on your car does it like this. You put in the letter N for a street name, and
comes out with a bunch of names.
Right. The letter B and C go grayed out. It's not even a choice. That's very similar to what this program is. So the technology finally has gotten out there. But you're telling me this guy... I mean, think about how fast that is. You get a few words on there, and then just to say the word universe. Now, that might be a word for him that's on his standby list.
Yeah.
Just to say atomic particle. He's got to look at an A, a T, an O, an M. Okay, we just got the word atom down there. Then he has to do it again for particle. If he looks at the wrong letter or ever his eye wanders... There's a correction that needs to go back and be made. It is one of the slowest process. How does he get information to read? Does he
right, but he answers so quick.
He's the smartest man on the planet.
But I don't see his eye moving.
How do you even? I mean, how can you argue with that?
No. This is the argument. Let me tell you what the argument was.
Totally did that in 1980, and Apple can't fix autocorrect on my phone. That's constantly making me look like an idiot.
No, flat screens
by filling in words that are wrong.
I mean, flat screens were like a
let me
Star
tell you,
Trek thing in 1980.
Let me tell you how they explain this, though. Did you see the Stephen Hawking movie?
No, maybe. Which one?
There's a movie about Stephen Hawking.
Oh, there's a documentary.
And his love is a love story, before.
Yeah, he's been married to 3. I'm sure they're all witches, literally in league with Satan, and they're there just to.
But this was the response, the explanation that I got. Oh yeah, it's Stephen Hawking. Yeah, did you see the movie, dude?
No, I didn't see the movie. Sorry.
Yeah, I saw Superman too, but I don't think there's a dude that.
This is what people explain. This is kind of falls in place with what you're saying. There's propaganda, there's news, there's movies, there's all kinds of stuff. This is where people get their information. And
I was talking to my mom about the Titanic and how this book called The Titan came out 20 years before the Titanic. It was, the book that came out in 1896.
It was about
it was about the biggest ship in the world. It was leaving Europe, traveling to the United States, and then it sank in the North Atlantic, and there weren't enough lifeboats on it, and most of the people died. So how weird that it happened again. Yeah. But not only that, it happened in a way that scientists have tried cannot reproduce something in this lab, which is how do you get ice to cut through the thick steel of the hull of a ship like that, which that steel's 18 inches, we're talking feet thick. And they can't even get a pan in your kitchen to even tear open and that's a thin little, that's just a few sheets of paper thin. No matter what they do with the ice, what configuration they have it in, what speed. Yeah, exactly.
Right. Gravity.
So my point is so I'm telling my mom.
Did you see the movie?
Did you see Leonardo DiCaprio?
Well, no, this is exactly what she said. I'm like,
I cried when he died.
I'm like, Mom, this is like the hidden history of the world. The people on that boat in 1913, these were guys that were blocking the Federal Reserve Act. They needed to be killed in a very conspicuous way, which for some reason is the way they do it. And that ultimately opened up the door. The Astors were on the boat and a few other the banking families that weren't down completely with setting up this, this outside federal money reserve. They were, I guess, too American at the time. And that's really the story behind the Titanic. But she's like, no. She's like, I saw it. She's like, son, I saw it. Like, I saw the accident happen. I know it happened because they hit ice. And I'm just like, oh, how your mind... And that's going on for all of us. We have these images in our head that they're kind of like the counterfeit of truth. Yeah. They're not really truth, but they feel like it's truth.
And it might be a little bit true. Just enough to, make it proper.
Yeah, I think that 1,500 people died, and they froze, and it was drowned.
Cold. Yeah, that's right. Yeah.
The ship went down.
Here, that brings up a good point. this interview that's supposed to be going on with Megyn Kelly and Alex Jones.
Yeah, what is this all about?
She had an interview with Alex Jones, right? Which, who cares?
Right, who cares?
Well, it's up there. I mean, Alex Jones is alternative, and she's mainstream. Yeah, but Putin's the head of Russia. Everyone knows that. Alex Jones is... That's really giving him, like, credibility.
Well, they're not trying to give him credibility. They're trying to
just,
trying to make him look like an idiot, right?
Whack him down even further. But I just wonder why it's such a big deal that she's interviewed. She could interview anybody. That's what they do. They interview people.
Yeah. Well, I'm sure she's doing it because his name has been coming up through all these people for some reason. I don't know why they keep bringing up Alex Jones.
Yeah, it's affecting her. Now, I'm not trying to defend Megyn Kelly.
Yeah.
But because she's going to interview a guy like Alex Jones, this is now going to threaten her career.
Well, yeah, because they're pulling sponsorship from him, right?
I mean, you can interview anyone you want. I mean, it's an interview.
Yeah, you really think we really have freedom of speech?
Yeah, they interviewed Charles Manson, for Christ's sake.
Many times.
No, but Charles, the point was, the whole thing going back to is it brings back the big thing that I heard from her interview with him was about Sandy Hook.
Yeah, Sandy Hook.
Yeah. And it was...
Dude, this is the second wave of it.
This is the thing. Well, that's because gun control.
This is the second wave of it.
So this Sandy Hook happens. Okay, Megyn, if she was to ask you what you thought about it, you could give your answers on it, and she's going to look at you and say, "You're a nut job."
Yeah, that's appalling.
How could you do that? Well, all you'd have to say is, "Well, what did you see when you were there?" Oh, you weren't there.
Right.
Right. So what do you know? You don't know anything more than I do.
Right.
So shut up. Right?
Yeah, you actually know less than I do because I've actually looked into it for real.
But this is how all these things are going on, this propaganda, and this is what really makes you angry. Because you see this stuff that's going on, and we talked about it being biblical, right? Because there's somebody behind it. I just can't believe it's just organically happening that people are doing
No,
this.
look, and it doesn't...
way.
It's because it's chronic and it's uniform. If you want to talk about anything today... This wasn't true in the 1700s. But if you want to talk about anything that is pro-biblical or supporting of the biblical narrative, you can literally easily lose your job. And it doesn't matter if you're a college professor who wants to teach about creation and even evolution side by side. It doesn't matter if you're a journalist that wants to reinvestigate 9/11. It doesn't matter if you're Megyn Kelly your speech really is not free. I mean, you can't...
Well, there are places that if you even mention Jesus Christ, they'll kill you. In this day and age. There are places in the world that they'll kill you.
Right?
Is there anyone else that has that you can say that about? Can you say that about Allah, for instance?
No, you can talk about that all day long.
Is there any other name that you can go mention that will just literally could possibly get you killed anywhere in the world that you guys can think of?
No, I think just maybe Donald Trump nowadays, but
Trump.
Yeah. Dude, you're so right with that. I
just
I
mentioning his name, you could get killed.
That was kind of a joke, but
I want to throw this out there to help prove Hooper's point before we move on. There's I heard a story. There are 3 ladies. It is somewhere in South Carolina. Could be North Carolina. Feel free to check your facts. But there are 3 ladies. There's a local high school, okay? And they've got open lunch. So, kids go to McDonald's, they go to Burger King, they go wherever they want. So these 3 ladies, there's a local public park right adjacent to the school. And these 3 ladies started doing what they call lunch with Jesus. And they brought food. And anybody who wanted to eat for free could eat. No problem. They'd feed them all. They brought more food every day. And while they did it, they ministered. They testified. They told stories about Christ, stories about God's grace. Okay? Now they're getting about 500 kids a day. All of a sudden, it's a problem. And luckily, they've one of those defense leagues, I don't remember which one it was, has provided them with a lawyer. Because these 3 ladies are serving 500 kids a day, I don't know if a church is supporting them or what they're doing. I mean, that's just a lot of food, man. But they're feeding these kids, and it didn't become a problem until the numbers started growing.
And if you deleted the whole lunch with Jesus part,
right,
and they were just feeding kids, it'd be fine. In fact, they might get a grant.
Yeah.
Right.
I think lunch with the devil probably is
that actually
like
would be fine
because
they have the right to
Well, maybe they can hook up with After School Satan and get them at lunch and after school.
Because
then they could do breakfast with Beelzebub. Have the whole day covered.
Breakfast with Beelzebub.
Lunch with Lucifer.
Breakfast with Baal.
A Beelzebub
on Tuesday.
I'm wondering if that was part of the same story that I just heard a few weeks ago about same kind of thing. Teachers were doing this on their off time. Off hours?
No, these were community members. They had no affiliation with the school, and they were in a public park.
Yeah. That one's not even that egregious. I mean, we've heard of things that are, I think, way more outlandish.
Oh, they're murdering Christians in the Middle East. So
yeah, but that's so far away that doesn't mean anything. But when someone loses their job for having a particular ancient book with them, it doesn't ever matter if it's Plato's Republic or if it's the Iliad or the Odyssey.
Yeah. Be the Quran, you're fine.
But if it happens to be the Bible, there are places where you can lose your job for having that book.
That's right.
Don't you think that's a little strange?
It's definitely.
Isn't it odd that
interesting?
The same God that just happened. We're sitting here looking all around the whole universe, going, "How did we get here?" And there just happens to be a book which explains it and authenticates itself by predicting thousands of things that were yet to happen in the world that have all happened perfectly. Where the author of that book takes credit for creating us, mystery solved, guys. And by the way, I'm sending my son. He starts writing about this son he's going to send all through the Old Testament. So everyone knows he's coming 1,000 years before he gets here. And it's just, how ironic that guy that claimed to have been that son that came from also just happens to be the most famous human being that's ever walked the earth.
Yeah.
That has no billboards, has no television show. There's no rock band behind it. How? Think about it.
You know how it goes with science fiction. I think the problem with the Bible is that there's only the Old Testament and then the sequel, which is the New Testament. So they're probably just waiting for the trilogy to get on board. They're waiting for the third movie.
Yeah, the third movie's coming.
Yeah, but they won't be watching.
But it ain't going to be.
It's not going to be a history lesson.
It ain't going to be a book.
They're going to be history.
Yeah, it's going to be a fireworks show.
But I do have to ask myself, why are so many people fighting against it?
Fighting against
it's programming because we've been programmed
about the Bible,
faith,
religious.
God.
Yeah, it's like you tell me you're a Christian. Oh, okay, cool. I'm a Muslim. All right.
Yeah, cool.
No, these people are out to ridicule and to shoot it. I mean, that's when someone starts to do that. That's usually when you start to turn around and say, "Hey, why are they doing that?
Yeah, wait a
minute. What's going on?"
Yeah, well, we know what's going on. The passage we just read at the beginning of the show.
Yep.
Look, and that's
what's so infuriating is just the way this has happened in our lifetime.
Yeah.
Okay, now it's been going on in stages a lot longer. But in our lifetime, if you were born in the 60s, I know you're probably born in the 70s.
Yeah, same, whatever.
But if you were born in the 60s, three of us here are, you have watched it go from an open and accepting, relatively God-fearing society. Now, there were plenty of people that chose not to follow, that didn't really go to church, or they were just going through the motions, okay? But we've watched our world turn from that into complete 180 anti-God pisses people off.
Yeah, and violence.
And
this is what I think this is incredible.
I'm not talking about being mad at God. Okay, because I was mad at God, you were mad at God, you were probably mad at God. I don't know if Tony was mad at God. He's pretty mild-mannered. But, we were all three of us have had these conversations. We were mad at God for periods in our life that kept us estranged, okay? But people are not just – I'm not talking about being mad at God. I'm talking about you bring up the concept.
Oh, that – yeah.
They've got no reason to be upset, but now they're furious.
Well, that's because since about 1860, the machine that works to influence our minds really has been built and pretty much perfected. It just wasn't, the technology wasn't there back in 1860. And the reason I bring up that year specifically is literally going back to the days of Jesus Christ. Now, the four Gospels, Matthew, Mark, Luke, and John, there's just debate about it. Not in my mind at all, but if it's in the Bible, like Napoleon said, men will believe anything unless it's written in the Bible. So you start with Caesar, Aurelius Augustus Caesar, who at the beginning of when he wrote his writings, and I want to say they were called Meditations, and
I believe so.
He wrote a lot. And in the beginning of his writings, he's always talking about praising the gods, making gods plural. He names the pagan gods that we today know, that the Romans. But in his later life writings, and this was now 100, he ruled Rome from 161 to 180 AD, give or take, or 160 to 181 AD. It was a 19-20-year reign. And by the end of that reign, so now we're about 100 years now removed, 150 years removed from Jesus Christ. There's no written word now. Everything's word of mouth. But something got to him, because by the end of his life, Caesar was writing about the one God, the Son of God, the Creator. He was acknowledging basically the Christian message. That was in 180 AD. Flash all the way forward, all throughout history, right up to about 1860, and the world is by and large Christian. It wasn't all there yet. It would take a little bit more time, but for the next 1800 years, the world is a very Christian world. And even, your grandmother's grandmother's mother. We don't have to go back very far in generations to go to a time where everyone from the president down to basically everyone knew. They knew Jesus Christ was real. He was the Son of God. He'd been here. Their lives were built around him. And they're sitting, I can read this all throughout history from the 1600s, 1700s, 1800s, all of these writers talking about, we're starting to see the falling away. We're still hanging on to our Christianity, but, the seeds have been planted. That's in the 1700s. Then in the 1800s, J.C. Ryle is talking about, he's like, he's already seeing the world as falling apart. And he's writing in like 1880, 1890, something like that. And something happened. It was right around 1860. And I do just think it was the theory of evolution. And the way that it came out, I found yesterday, I loved it. Someone else in history that also said, the Huxleys kind of went out of their way to promote this thing without getting their facts straight. A lot of comments on how this was the best marketed program. And it's only been since 1860. So we're talking 157 years. That's freaking nothing. You know what that is? That's the last days. And isn't it funny that this ancient manuscript predicted that in the last days we'd be believing doctrines of devils, which is literally what I think evolution is. Because it's been the cornerstone of Hitler's eugenics program. It's the cornerstone of survival of the fittest. It means that I don't answer to anyone. My morality is
It's the cornerstone of the new atheism. Well, people don't even realize how atheism has changed,
atheism is a religion of
absolutely.
Satan at the end of the day. Because I didn't write history. I didn't make it up. I'm not... If the Quran would have made sense and you could have tied it together factually, testing it scientifically, I'd be on a Quran show. It just so happened that of all the books written in history, there's only one that has the characteristic the Bible has, which is it predicts with 100% accuracy the future before it happens. If that was in another book, then I'd.
Of course. Then you'd have to look at it differently.
It does something to you. And then this very same book predicts that there's going to be this... It tells the story. It tells how we got here. It tells how to get out of here. It gives us warnings, tells us how to live. I mean, it's a pretty detailed thing if you really, and it's written in 3D. It's not just a superficial. There's unbelievable genius behind it. So, how funny that in 1860, right with the theory of evolution, which Darwin himself wouldn't have believed in based on what we've found, which is nothing, that really begins a shift in the world that has led it to where it is today, which is Christianity, which was dominant really throughout the world for the last couple thousand years, doesn't feel like it really is. Maybe a lot of people can check Christian on an application, but really a biblical Christian. What was that research study we?
Oh yeah,
so 7% of the population is actually,
That's a pretty small number.
Whereas it used to be
that was
probably
the population
50.
of the United States. So
Yeah.
Are we getting close to a break?
Yep.
Or does anyone have anything they want to add to that, or
I think we're
refute?
No, just
comment?
I mean, I know that there are people in history that obviously do things, either great things or they're either famous or infamous.
right.
But I saw something else that I thought was kind of interesting, and I happened to be reading the Bible at the time, so it made me think about Christ. Is that the average length of time you can expect to be remembered is 3 generations. The average person is only remembered for 3 generations.
That's pretty accurate if you think about it.
But you think about it that, I realize...
Yeah, who's your great-great-grandfather?
Don't know.
No clue.
I have
Never
no
met him.
idea.
Never met him.
Great-grandfather, for sure, I know who that is.
I've met my grandfather. I have met my grandfather. That's it.
But you know who your great-grandfather was?
No. I mean, I know he was my grandfather's father.
Oh, you don't know names or anything
no,
like that?
No, not sure.
Yeah, but that's in that threshold, though. Right? The 3 that's in that threshold. Yeah, because beyond that, you're right.
Yeah.
I couldn't tell you who my...
And my son, he doesn't know his grandmother or his great grandfather.
Yeah.
Because I don't talk as much about my grandparents to my son, and my mother died before my son was born, so he's never met her.
Right.
So where are you going with? I mean, I'm with you on that.
I just think that adds. Caesar was an emperor of Rome. Christ was a shepherd,
carpenter, nobody.
Right?
He was poor.
He was a carpenter from Galilee.
Yeah, he was poor.
Galilee was the Ohio of the Middle East.
That's even kind of.
It was the punchline to a joke.
I thought it was literally more like
Anytime.
the Kentucky of the. I'm not. Like it was known as like a pretty trashy area.
At least
Kentucky's
Kentucky
kinda
gave
cool.
us fried chicken. Okay, that's what I'm saying.
Zero in on like Toledo.
Yeah.
Okay.
Toledo area.
Yeah.
But it was the punchline to a joke. You'd see someone walk up and say something stupid. Oh, what's he from Galilee? Oh, jeez. This guy's a carpenter from Galilee.
I was going to say that's true for Livonia as well.
Right.
Too.
And 2,000 years later,
Yeah.
we're not only talking about him, we're arguing about him. I wouldn't have an argument about Caesar.
Yeah, think about it. We're talking about a fisherman/carpenter that was executed at the age of 33. He never ruled a government.
Yeah.
He didn't write any books. He didn't sing songs. He wasn't a military officer.
No.
Yet he's the most famous.
Yeah, he was an average dude, well, except for one minor detail.
Performed miracles, but
Oh, yeah. Wait a minute. Maybe that's why he got popular.
maybe.
Never know. Well, we're going to find out when we get back from this break. See you in a few. I want to get to, we got off on a tangent, but it was a good tangent. I think it was a good conversation. But I want to talk about what I kind of had planned for the show today, which leads back to a couple shows ago when I was talking about how bummed out I was on the death of Chris Cornell, a personal hero of mine. The guy's a very talented artist. I don't know if hero's the right word.
It's a good word. Yeah, sure. Why not?
You think?
Yeah, why not?
You think?
Yeah.
Okay. He's definitely someone I look up to.
Of course, yeah.
Shitload of talent and just a truly, genuinely nice human being. You never heard Axl Rose, Sebastian Bach stories about Chris Cornell. You only heard what a genuinely kind person he was from everyone. And so we were sending stuff. We grabbed. We're on a group text, and we send stuff around. And Kat sent something out last week that you and I were commenting on, and I actually got a chance to research it this weekend, and it's a little disturbing, a little irritating, and so it ties into a couple things that are going on. I want to get your opinions about it. I want to talk about it, and the article that the Kat texted us is from. She got it from neonnettle.com. That's neonnettle.com. And the name of the article is Chris Cornell was about to expose elite pedophile ring before he died. So it says that, we all know.
What are the sources in it? Like what's the substantiation?
It was an inside source close to him. That's all it says.
Yeah.
So it's hard to vet, right?
Yeah, TMD reports on it. Whoever they are.
Who knows?
They're just trying to sound like TMZ,
right?
But it goes into the, links back to the Clintons again, our wonderful friends, the Clintons, who will never go away.
But don't go thinking the Clintons are running this operation. They're students. They might be fans of it, but they're trapped in it like everyone else.
They're just getting frequent flyer miles to Lolita Island, and so I started to wonder. So I read it. I read the story, and I happened to know, because I am a huge fan of Chris Cornell. I have read over the years about his philanthropic endeavors. I know he cares a great deal about children. I know that he has established his own foundation that helps at-risk children in foster care. And I know that he has also contributed to a couple other foundations throughout his career based in Seattle that also dealt with kids. There was, I think it's St. Anne's Church or something like that, a very popular Northeastern, but I could be wrong. Feel free to check for yourself. But he's involved with at least 3 different organizations that all of their focus is on helping children who need help.
Right.
And so I started thinking about it. And the first thing that popped into my head was I rolled my eyes, because it seems like I've heard this 5 times in the last 6 to 9 months. When someone famous dies, it's because they were going to expose an elite pedophile ring. Always the same pedophile ring. And I'm like, is this just the new thing? Every time a celebrity dies, someone's going to make a new YouTube video that says this? But then when you read the article and you get deep into the people that Chris Cornell was legitimately connected to, and you go 1 degree, you find out that they're legitimately connected to some of the other people that are fighting, and then connected to people that are involved in fighting Pizzagate and Lolita Island,
human trafficking
in general. And so I wonder out loud. It's like, well, what is it? Is this just the new thing that they're going to throw out there so that every time a celebrity dies, they're mainstreaming, human trafficking? They're trying to put it on so that it becomes the new conspiracy theory. So the second time it's like, oh yeah, did you hear? Adam West died. Oh yeah, he was about to expose an elite pedophile ring, dude, and that becomes the new punchline.
It could be,
so that we are completely desensitized to the fact that there is an elite pedophile ring.
Right.
Okay.
Well, this has been talked about for years.
Yeah, Pizzagate. Yeah, we've talked about it on the show several times. We learned all about it from Kat. It's how Kat got on our show, was human trafficking. But I wonder about that in conjunction with with Chris Cornell, and then that led me, as I was doing research on that, just out of sheer, I wasn't even doing it for the show. This was just sheer curiosity. I tripped across all this stuff where people are talking about how the mainstream media is ignoring Trump's war on pedophilia.
Which is that I would agree with that.
Well,
because
here's my issue, and I want the 4 of us to go through it for the next segment. Here's the thing. So I go and you Google it, and I find 10 articles that all agree with that and say that mainstream media is completely ignoring Trump's war on pedophilia. They all quote very, very similar stats. There's about 5 cases. One major one is in California, and they all go through it. So then I found this other article that completely debunks the 5 sets of statistics that they're using to say that Trump has taken out 6,000 pedophiles, 9,000 pedophiles in his first few months in office, first 6 months in office.
Yeah, I mean it wouldn't be him, right? It'd be his
right, but it's at his, but it's at his behest.
Sure, of course. I heard the stat I heard was that, and again, I don't even know how you'd go about confirming these stats. I don't know, but the one I heard was that on average over the past 8, 9, 10 years, you had about 400 arrests a year, and there's been 4,000 in the last 6 months. I don't know how true that is. I have no idea. I do know, though, that there is a huge problem with pedophilia and with victimizing children in general, and it's definitely escalating, and you're seeing more and more, not necessarily that kind of thing, but I seem to be noticing a lot more attacks on children and in homicide lately that are it's disturbing to say the least.
And is it because it's on the increase, or is it because we're just being made aware?
I really don't know. There's no way I could know this. You'd have to have access to.
Because that's the thing. I mean, I remember when everybody started worrying about the dudes driving vans in the neighborhood. In the 90s when these cable news shows started going on. And then the mantra, everybody's walking around going, oh yeah. Oh, it's crazy times. There are just so many more pedophiles out there trying to steal your kids. And at one point, I had to stop and ask, well, are there?
I think there are. I think this is on the rise.
But back in the 70s, when I was a kid, we only got the news from Detroit. We didn't know what was going on in Des Moines.
That's true.
We didn't know what was going on.
There was a bunch of kids missing in Detroit, though, when you were growing up.
There was
Birmingham area.
There were kids that but it wasn't every day, every news cycle. But all of a sudden, when they're trying to grab headlines, the little girl in Utah that got taken by the guy who painted their house.
Well, dude, if we've already realized there's 40,000 of these a month in the United States,
yeah.
I mean, they could do a segment an hour on this around the clock,
right,
all year.
Yeah.
All I was trying to say, Howard, is that it's been going on. The news has always covered it up.
Yeah, I think it's not that new things are happening. I think it's literally the internet and the immediacy of reporting. It is so hard to hide in this world now because everyone carries on them already a recording device, both audio and video. You can't go anywhere where something can't be recorded. And many things are now getting caught by that new
I mean, you can
reality.
make a career out of finding the answer to that question. I think that it's clearly there's a problem. I think both could be true. Either it's always been this way, and we're just now being made aware of it,
we're just getting
or
in the loop.
It's escalating. And I think if you want to,
both. Yeah.
It could be both. Could be until you actually make a lifetime.
Well, it could be like everything else.
I've
maintained the whole time since I got involved in this that the reason why so many more people are awake now than 20 years ago is because the more they got away with, the more brazen they became in the events that they pulled off and tried to give us ridiculous stories for. They'll buy anything. Hey, I'll tell you what. Let's tell them planes hit the Twin Towers. And 9/11 stunk so bad that they just crossed a line, and it got so many of us to go, wait a minute, that doesn't make any sense whatsoever.
Yeah.
But there's so many people that still argue against that.
Against what?
Well, it's because they've never looked into it, or they're too stupid to understand it.
Well, you got this. What happened yesterday in England when that high rise caught on fire? You guys saw
some of that I saw.
I mean, that was quite a fire.
Yeah,
it went
big
on
time.
24 hours.
Yeah. Did it
Right?
come down?
Oh,
No.
I'm sure it
No.
collapsed into
Didn't-
its own
didn't
footprint
collapse,
and turned to dust.
Yeah, and the one
leaving-
next door that didn't get hit.
There was a
actually
building
collapsed,
2
too.
blocks away that fell.
So
Right.
here,
Yeah.
you know how that happened? I just read somebody's comment because we're all idiots. It's because the jet fuel turned the drywall into thermite.
Oh,
idiots.
that's right.
Don't you know anything about science?
That's right. I forgot you can make thermite out of drywall because
Yeah.
gypsum.
That's
turns
why-
into-
Kerosene.
Well,
That's-
you
that's why
can make
thermite's so cheap.
thermite
Oh,
out of stuff that you can buy in regular stores.
Yeah, but not
It's got
nano,
sulfate in it.
not
It's got
nanothermite.
that's exactly that is different.
It's a little different. Yeah, it's a little different.
But these pedophilia rings,
do they
it's been
exist?
talked
there's,
about
there's no
forever.
question that they
Oh, they
exist.
absolutely exist.
No, they
Without a
exist.
doubt. They
And it's-
absolutely exist.
and
It's funny you
it's-
mentioned Clinton. Do you guys know who Kathy O'Brien is?
No,
Sounds
I
familiar.
don't think so.
So she came out in the mid '90s talking about how
she's a spinner for Hillary or something.
yeah, I mean she's like, look, I was raised as a ritual sexual abuse. I was in what would be called the Monarch program. She was originally programmed as like a sex kitten type of presidential servicer. She was right in the White House. There's no dispute about the White House part. And it's interesting that we're sitting here in 2017 talking about pedophile leading back to Hillary Clinton. Here's something she said. This was in 1995, and this was in her book called Transformation. She wrote, "From my perspective, those who were actively laying the groundwork for implementing the New World Order." Remember, this is 1995. Back then, New World Order isn't publicly just known like it is now.
Yeah, it was like a ministry song.
Those who were actively laying the groundwork for implementing the New World Order through mind conditioning of the masses made no distinction between Democratic and Republican parties. Their aspirations were international in proportion, not American. Members were often drawn from among other elitist groups, the Council on Foreign Relations. Like George Bush, Sr., Bill Clinton was an active member of the CFR, as well as Yale Skull and Bones graduate. Based on numerous conversations I overheard, Clinton was being groomed and prepared to fill the role of president under the guise of Democrat in the event that the American people became discouraged with Republican leaders. This was further evidenced by the extent of Clinton's New World Order knowledge and professed loyalties. So in the comment section, maybe that's what I actually wanted to read. So this is Kathy O'Brien. She lectures all over the world about Monarch programming, the mind control program that came out of Nazi Germany that the CIA modified and has put probably millions of people under at this point. Some of them don't even know it. Many do. When someone goes crazy and shoots a bunch of people at a mall and then shoots themselves, that is a good indicator that you're looking at someone that's been through that program. So MKUltra and Monarch program survivor. MKUltra is an acronym. I don't know if this is made up or true, but for manufacturing killers utilizing lethal tradecraft requiring assassinations. Where was the part on Hillary Clinton? In Transformation of America, O'Brien claims that as a child she was first sexually abused by her father as well as a network of child pornographers. She was then forced by the CIA to participate in Project Monarch, a subsection of Project MKUltra and Project Artichoke. According to O'Brien, under hypnosis, she was able to recall memories of sexual abuse of both her and her daughter by international pedophile rings, drug barons, and Satanists who allegedly use a form of trauma-based mind control programming to make her a sex slave. That's not the one that I was looking for, because one of these girls said something about Hillary Clinton back in the 90s. And I'm still looking for it. What do you think about what Kathy O'Brien said in 1995? She must have sounded insane to the world back then. Now she actually...
Yeah.
There's like 4 different parts that are... I mean, there's a lot of freaking evidence that kind of backs that up, you know? Kathleen Sullivan was another one. She said this in 1989. She was also quoted in this report. Many of them were abused by... okay, so let's hear the quote. Oh, she just links it to secret societies. She said that a surprising number of ritual abuse survivors have also remembered having been horrendously, methodically, ritually abused in Masonic lodges and temples. Common themes like the same groups keep popping up. That was something she wrote for a report on the Ritual Abuse Task Force in 1989. There's another one.
Well, there's... You're just talking about different... What connection are you trying to make here?
I thought I highlighted the right one. One of these ladies mentioned the Clintons and how Hillary Clinton was part of this pedophile ring, and she did it in the 90s when she said it. And
well, they've got her on record on Jeffrey Epstein's plane going to Pedophilia Island or whatever they called it, right?
A lot of people slough something like this off, but Yoko Ono said in an interview that she had sex with her.
Right.
That doesn't prove pedophilia or anything like that. Maybe.
Well, it proves there's more to the story than what you're led to believe, right?
Proves she's a little deviant. Which
Yeah,
makes her a little actually more interesting to me.
No.
Gross, dude.
Well.
Zero.
You!
Dude, she broke up the Beatles.
How funny.
Which is not that tragic, in my opinion.
Yeah, it was fine with me.
Yeah,
I'm
it's
just
fine.
saying.
Yeah.
You ever listened to that record about broke my eardrums?
Oh, the Yoko
I just
Ono.
I just think the Beatles suck. So,
do you guys want to hear a couple more of these?
if you got more, yeah, we're
Why
talking.
not?
I mean,
about,
if you want to move on, because that's such a heavy topic. It's just, you guys know who Ted Gunderson is?
yeah.
Former FBI in charge of the Dallas, then Los Angeles field offices. He had hundreds of agents under him. After a distinguished FBI career, Gunderson worked through his private investigation service to educate others about the size scope of real Satanism and child abduction in the highest levels of government. So here's something that he said in a Probe magazine interview. This was in 1997. This is a senior level FBI agent. He was actually being considered as the director of the FBI a few years before he resigned from the FBI. That's how high level he is. Was as credible as they get. He wrote this. The Finders. There's a group called The Finders. The Finders, a CIA front. Here again, links to the CIA. The Finders, a CIA front established in the 1960s. It has top clearance and protection in its assigned task of kidnapping and torture programming young children throughout the U.S. This is a senior-level FBI agent talking about the Central Intelligence Agency. No, maybe he's gone crazy.
Maybe.
Or maybe he actually has the balls to get out there and say something. There's enough co-cooperation that I don't doubt what he has to say. He goes on to say, members are specially trained government kidnappers known to be sexual degenerates who involve the kidnapped children in satanic sex orgies and bloody rituals, as well as the murders of other children and slaughter of animals. They use a fleet of unmarked vans. Maybe that's where the van cliche started, because where do most myths come from? Truth. They use a fleet of unmarked vans to grab targeted children from parks and schoolyards. In doing so, they use children within their organization as decoys to attract the victims close to the vans where they are grabbed by adults. They then drug the children and transport them to a series of safe houses for safekeeping. They are then used in their ceremonies. It's hard to hear this. They are then used in their ceremonies for body parts, sex slaves, and some are auctioned off at various locations in the Northern Hemisphere. So you've got an FBI director level guy going public with this. And it's not like he just said it once. He spent his retirement exposing this. Another credible guy. You guys know who John DeCamp is?
Franklin conspiracy.
Why do I know that?
Yes. He was the attorney for Paul Benassi. Paul Benassi was one of the young kids who claimed to have seen Jonathan Gosch, famous story behind Jonathan Gosch, the Franklin SNL scandal, whose own father assisted in his own abduction as part of like a blood in, blood out type of arrangement proving his worth, which the wife found out 10 years later after a ridiculous search, brought her, amongst many people, to Paul Benassi, this kid who was in a photograph with her kid and who knew about him, knew what happened to him, who had these unbelievably grotesque stories where it's so unbelievable, it's probably one of its protections, where the President of the United States, George Bush Sr. at the time, literally would have sex with these kids.
Well, he described the interior of the White House, not having been there, apparently.
Now, the Washington Post also came out with homosexual sex ring in the White House in the Reagan-Bush White House in the 1980s. So John DeCamp, he is brought into this whole thing as the attorney for Paul Benassi. Okay? It ends up changing this guy's life because he stops practicing this kind of law. He starts writing books. And, I mean, something he was exposed. He saw something that moved him. And he wrote this in, I want to say this was in his book. And he did a couple books. But this was an interview with a guy named Anton Chaikin. And this would have been in, I don't know the year exactly, but probably in the late 90s. He writes, this network he stumbled on that he found, that Paul Benassi was trapped in, that Jonathan Gosch was trapped in, that Kathy O'Brien and Kathleen Sullivan and Bryce Taylor all talk about. This network, he said, it's simply the production of a horde of children in whom the soul is crushed, who would spy, whore, kill, and commit suicide. And these programmed killers, what do? I mean, they have a code to literally kill themselves at the end. And the ones that don't have no recollection of the event, which is strange. The Franklin cover-up attorney John W. DeCamp's groundbreaking book about high-level pedophilia also describes the sordid details of Monarch. This is a quote. Drugs are not the deepest level of government-sponsored evil, he writes. I think the lowest level of hell is reserved for those who conjured up and carried out the Monarch Project. Monarch refers to young people in America who were victims of mind control experiments run either by the U.S. government, agencies such as CIA or military intelligence agencies. DeCamp's client, Monarch abuse survivor Paul Benassi, has a story which parallels the victimology of O'Brien, Taylor, and Sullivan, cross-corroborating everything.
Well, it's it's a real story because people went to jail.
Yeah.
I mean, there's people in jail over this case, so it's not like it's hearsay.
And it seems to... I mean, we get so many clues. Britney Spears shaves her head, goes crazy. Who's Hayden Panettiere? Was she another one that went crazy? Amy...
Look at what Katy Perry is doing.
Oh, she's another one. She just shaved her head, and she started talking about how her other personality needs to be in charge because Katy Perry's too weak and whatever her other personality. I mean, this...
It's wacky, dude.
You could see it coming.
She does the Monarch thing to a T, and it's always tied to these famous people. So here's another crazy story that is linked to a hyper-famous woman. Have you guys ever heard of Fiona Barnett? She's Australian.
I don't think
Who's
so.
Australian.
Who's the most famous Australian woman that you know? Who comes to mind?
Nicole
Kiana
Kidman.
Barnett.
Olivia
Okay,
Newton-John.
Nicole Kidman. Hang on.
Is she Australian?
Hang on to that.
Australian.
Australian?
Two quotes by Fiona. Number one, yes, ritual abuse does exist in Australia. a kitty-killing cult underpins the Roman Catholic Church. Engadine, which is a little neighborhood there. Engadine, Boys Town, Halsworthy Army Base, and Lucas Heights Nuclear Reactor. It's funny, but it's sort of like the same story all over the world. Now, here's the interesting one. This is a quote from her book. In the late afternoon of October 28, 1975, I was taken to my 6th birthday party in the Kiama rainforest. The cordial was spiked with drugs. I fell asleep. When I awoke, it was dark and I was lying naked, face up, spread eagle on a picnic table with my hands and legs tied. This is her 6th birthday, by the way. Perpetrators took turns sneaking up on me. A large group of men arrived in pickup trucks. They carried rifles and had a pack of starving Doberman dogs. Oh, this is so sick, but I was told that the group of naked children huddled nearby were my responsibility. I was to run and hide them. Every child I failed to hide would be killed and fed to the dogs. They painted something on my back and chest and then released us. I pushed the children up over the first steep hill. It was about the 2nd or 3rd hill that the hunting party reached us. Shots were fired and children began dropping all around me. With all hope lost of my saving the other children, I took off and ran for my life. So how does this tie into someone that's famous? Her MKUltra and Monarch program survivor, Fiona Barnett. Barnett, Dutch therapist Toos Nielhouse, and Jenny Hill of Garden Grove, California, all claimed their mind control experiences were overseen by Nazi mind control experts. So this is now 3 Australian women that came out supporting her. Mm-hmm. Now, I just don't think you're going to want to get publicity by saying something so crazy unless it's true, but I don't know. Because these are mothers, okay, that are coming out. These aren't like rock stars. This isn't these are 50-year-old women, okay? They've been around the corner. Jenny Hill of Garden Grove, California, Toos Ninehouse of Holland, obviously, all claim their mind control experiences were overseen by Nazi mind control experts imported into their countries by the CIA after World War II to develop super spies. The childhood trauma that shattered them into multiple personalities included being repeatedly raped from an early age. Their abuse seemed to intensify by age 6. Fiona's public disclosure in 2014 led to other Australian victims coming forward and requesting assistance and exposure for their experiences. Her official complaint against key perpetrator and high-profile Australian psychologist Dr. Anthony Kidman immediately preceded his mysterious death in 2014.
Uh-oh.
He was Nicole Kidman's father.
Oh, about that.
So,
crikey, mate.
2 unbelievable things happen. This guy, if he's a regular doctor, 3 unbelievable things have happened out of him. He has a daughter that has become a worldwide movie star. He was accused of child pornography by a fellow citizen, and I mean demonic abuse. And the same year that he was accused of that, he dies mysteriously. And that story repeats over and over and over and over.
Well, I can hear the same story here in London. They got a story here in the Los Angeles Times.
What is it?
About the investigation into the alleged VIP pedophilia ring in Britain, which has been proved. The Jeff Seville, what's his first name?
I don't know.
Johnny Seville or whatever. He was a big children guy. Who was covered up for with the by Parliament and the royal family. He was a personal friend of,
there's always a cover up. It's always involves people that are right in. It's almost like Jerry Sandusky of Penn State.
Yeah, it's always like people that are right.
It was a warning shot saying, "You guys keep our secrets. You follow your
Jimmy
orders.
Seville.
Otherwise, you're going to have the fate of Jerry Sandusky his life and family are destroyed.
His son just got arrested, by the way.
Jerry Sandusky's?
Yeah.
For what?
Pedophilia.
Really?
Yeah. And when the big Pennsylvania sting they just had.
Oh, my.
Because one of the things you were talking about was a different
Don't be
bust that are
surprised.
going on right now.
Pedophilia, it's a generational... I think it's almost like an addiction.
This is the one thing where I will not curb my anger over. Anytime anything involving children like that, I'm sorry, but I don't know how these guys do it as far as investigating these crimes, arresting these people, affording them their civil rights. I couldn't do it, dude. I couldn't do it. I'd be clear in leather the first week.
Look, most of these people don't even really get investigated.
No, but I mean, if here's a case, the police officers that have to go arrest these people, they know what's going on. The guy admits it, Brad. They got all the video right there. I mean, when you're presented with such disgusting, graphic thing, and even sometimes, the kids end up dead, and here you gotta, treat this guy like he's got some kind of civil. That's a human challenge of all human challenges. At least for me, I don't think I could handle it. But there's it's so rampant.
That for me is I can't think of anything more evil than that. I don't know what else is out there.
I think that's why it happens, because they are, children are innocent. They're relatively new creations, right? Because they're young, and they're targeted. And there are places where orphans can go missing, and no one would even notice. No one even noticed. You could take them right off the street. No one even notices. And if you got some bucks, you can pay off certain officials that just allow it to happen. And before you know it, you have these brothels across the places like Southeast Asia, India.
Yeah, but this isn't like 50 pedophiles kind of like found each other and decided to form a little...
Oh, no, this is a global network.
A team.
This is so big.
This thing it is global. It's organized. It is oozing with evil. Who do you think might be behind this?
Yeah, right. Yeah,
At the end of the day, and
that's the only way that could be behind it. Because
the
the story doesn't make sense otherwise.
This is not a human. The same type of sacrifice that the Bible warned about in the Old Testament, where all these pagan lovers would sacrifice their child to Moloch or Chemosh.
Yeah, they burn them alive.
I mean, in a lot of ways, this is even worse, because the pain in a burning alive situation, it's over in 60 seconds or less. But this is a torture that lasts 50, 60, it lasts your whole lifetime. Yeah. It's 1,000 times more cruel. And what's the net result of it is they break down your brain, your identity, your personality. It's not mind splitting, it is mind destroying. And then they literally refill it with whatever they need. An assassin, this is like... And then when a movie like The Manchurian Candidate comes out, and I'm talking about the original with George Peppard, and I happened to just last night see the one with Denzel Washington, like it makes this is how they F us. Because they make it seem like it's future sci-fi fantasy, chips in people that control them. And that technology is 30 years old already.
Yeah.
And the fact that it's now been in a movie... If you ever try and describe it happening in real life, you're saying The Manchurian Candidate is real? If it was, wouldn't that be a great frickin' cover to make a movie saying it was?
Well, Minority Report's a good example of this. You're seeing this now.
Yep.
In what way?
Well, where...
Future crime?
It's that.
Recognition.
You're starting with your phone, right, where predictive things and pretty, in that movie you see, like when you walk into a store entrance, it knows who you are. Hey, Mr. So-and-so.
Scan of your eyes.
Last time you were here, you bought this. You might be interested in this. You're seeing this kind of in your Google searches.
Oh, that's now.
And that was that, I think that wasn't Chicago? I think I talked to you about that, Howard, where they were talking about...
Yeah. They're using statistics.
Crunching stats.
Yeah.
To target people because they probably will commit crimes.
Yep. Mm-hmm. So they can focus their resources in the area that'll do the most good. Yeah.
The most good. Yeah. And strip people of their rights at a mind-bending pace. But
did I read this, or am I confusing this with real science fiction? That there's now technology that allows a face to be scanned when it walks into a retail store, and they know immediately who it is. There's no ID, no fingerprint, no nothing, and they tailor marketing to them.
That I don't know, but that was kind of what was in Minority Report.
Maybe that's the Minority Report angle, but the facial recognition.
Oh, it's for real.
There was a story about facial recognition the other day with some lady I think you might be referring to.
Yeah, that's real technology that they use.
And what they use it for, but it's all for good.
Well,
this is what they put these stories out. It's like, oh yeah, we're going to be able to do this, and we're these are all good things.
Just think, with this chip in your arm, your doctor, if your child ever gets hit by a car, will know all his medical history right off the bat. Think of all the lives that'll be saved. Yeah, and then I think of that passage in the Bible. It says, beware, because in the last days they're going to make you take something under your skin, and you're not going to be allowed to buy or sell unless you have it. And holy cow! I mean, that chessboard is ready for a checkmate, right? That it's all here.
Yeah,
the chips, the tracking technology, these things can do things to your DNA. It can pump in adrenaline. It can.
Yeah,
it does things we don't even.
Go back to the Chris Cornell thing for a second. Just something popped in my mind. I noticed because I started kind of getting into this nonprofit kind of charity type stuff with the foundation we started, and it automatically ties into human trafficking because we're focusing on education so these kids can kind of have a chance, right? What I noticed is now if whole pedophile thing was just like small time Joe sicko on the corner, if it wasn't high level, why is it that the groups that seem to be doing the most they're the most active in fighting human trafficking, specifically children, are so clandestine that they won't even divulge their locations in the areas they operate? I wonder why that is. Because if they were really, you'd think they'd be teamed up with the police. They'd be teamed up with the government there, to do this. But these people operate in secret because the reason why, I think, is it goes so high level that obviously they must be concerned that if they find out who they are and what they're doing, sicko Joe on the corner that's asking kids if they like candy doesn't have the ability to manipulate the military or police to assassinate you because you're trying to stop a guy like that. So there's a reason why they operate in secret, because they have to. And I wonder why that is. Well, probably because they're dealing with it goes from the drug cartels to local, mafia, organized crime type stuff, and I'm sure it bleeds into government officials, high-level military people. And the only way to really help these kids is to be like an undercover agent. Like,
right. You got to be outside. You got to be off the grid, man.
That's right.
Well, in your article that you were bringing up about Chris Cornell, which they bring up the whole Mena, Arkansas.
There was a tie to Arkansas.
Well,
that's right.
No, it's just it's Dan Lassiter. It's the connection is through one of Clinton's top guys, who was part of the Mena, the Arkansas deal, where they were running cocaine for the Columbia.
Cocaine and kids.
Yeah,
and that's a real story. It's been around forever. That was actually happened.
2 degrees off Dan Lassiter. Dan Lassiter is the connection. He was with Clinton, and then there's like 2 degrees from that to get to Chris Cornell.
Yeah, but there was and
it's linked foundationally. It's a link to one of the foundations.
Yeah, it's
That's why I said there's enough there to make me go,
maybe.
Do I think this is without a doubt false? I can't say that.
No, I would say it's either way, whether it was a wacky conspiracy or absolutely true, I could accept either one as the truth at this point, because everything's so upside down that either way it makes sense, right?
Yeah.
I mean, you could make that up. Sure. But could it be true? Absolutely.
I mean, I hate to sound crazy, but I mean, I'd almost feel a little more comfortable if it was true, because then he died for a reason.
That, and it would at least, because I know what that feels like to not
Yeah.
know the
I
truth,
mean, his wife's inconsolable.
but really want to know the truth,
Yeah.
and at least it would be the truth.
Oh.
At least it would be the truth.
Yeah, well, your truth was pretty awful.
Yeah, but
And-
the
and
lack of it.
But by knowing it, it
That's- of
allowed you
course.
to move on and
Well, you
heal.
know the real story.
Yeah.
That's what you're after. Is you have to know the real
Yeah.
story. And if you want to go ahead and trust everything, medical examiners say and their conclusions they come up with, it's not always.
I was going to bring up to your point, Dave. There's a guy that's putting together this whole thing about pedophilia. He's a ex-military. He's got a lot of people
the guy
behind him.
Wars, yeah.
Yeah, the ex-military guy,
Yeah.
right? Trying to get financing for it, and it got shut down through. What are some of these big financing things?
Morgan Stanley?
No,
private
it's,
equity?
Like trying to get a grant.
Foundation?
It's the websites where people donate and you
Like a GoFundMe.
like a GoFundMe
Yeah.
type things.
So,
Applied to all those, and they shut them down.
They wouldn't let them raise money to do that?
That's right.
Yep.
That's right. The big one. Another guy, Ben Swan, was a big news guy. Been on a lot of different things. Reporter. He was doing some
Yeah, it
stuff
had
on
to do with
pedophilia.
veterans. He's,
Pretty soon,
yeah.
boom. He's all his stuff's off the internet, and
Well, you got to imagine, if you dig deep enough, who you would expose.
well, you're talking about
in
CIA.
This, right. You're talking
about CIA, and this is what's funny
it's
about
people that we see on TV on the regular
Yeah.
that are
Here-
participating in this.
our 17 intelligence things that everybody seems to love, right? Who are these people? What is their job? Their job is to lie, to cheat, to kill, to
Deflect.
overthrow. These people are evil people,
Yeah, that's what they
but
do.
yet they bring them in front of Congress, and it's like, oh, yeah, well, this guy says this.
Yeah.
I don't trust a single word that guy says.
Well, anybody who's ever heard anything out of anyone named Clinton's mouth has been lied to.
Yeah.
Do you guys know who Robert David Steele is?
He's an ex-agent that come
Yep.
out about all this kind of stuff.
WWF wrestler?
No, he's a former CIA clandestine operations case officer. He was in the Marines. Your typical patriotic American. I'm joining the military. Was in Vietnam. Then joined. He thinks it's awesome. He gets hooked up in the CIA. And don't confuse him with like Gene Chip Tatum, who's another guy who has a very similar story. But along the way, Robert David Steele starts to figure out that, the missions I'm going on, when you're young and dumb, the first few ones you're like, yeah, but then you start to
What's
reflect
going
on,
on
wait
here?
a minute, I've run 3 missions. I'm taking children away from their families. Like, what?
Yeah.
What's my? Is it really worth national security to be doing this? I mean, that is.
Does it have anything to do with national security?
So here's one thing he wrote, and this
He's a
one was
big
more
whistleblower.
recent.
We
This
got
was
about
in-
2 minutes left.
He said this year. He says, and of course you have Jeffrey Epstein. This is the
Oh,
guy
yeah.
we were talking about. And of course you have Jeffrey Epstein, the Mossad agent who created Lolita Island and a no-name elite hotel in New York City. Both are wired for audio and video, and his mission was to collect videos of U.S. elites raping children of both sexes. He got both Clintons, and I would not be at all surprised to find he also has Chuck Schumer on tape.
Totally accept
Then,
that as true.
as he's
Totally.
saying that,
Creep.
we've got Kathleen Sullivan, who was a recovering survivor of mind control, and she writes in her book, I was forced to participate in some blackmail activities with DC-level politicians. I know who they are, and from what I know about them, some of them are very unhappy about being unable to do what is honorable and right. They have to go along with the perpetrators because if the truth were told about what they had done in the past, their careers and reputations would be permanently destroyed. I feel sorry for them and consider them to also be victims. If you want to understand how these things get pulled off and
Yep,
how secrets
that's
are
how it
kept,
is.
Yeah, but you know what?
you're hearing it from both sides. These are intelligence, high-level analysts, bureaucrats, government figures, and you've also got the victims. They're saying the exact same thing. What's missing? Like, why doesn't everyone know this? What were you about to say, Tony?
I was going to say, I have really no sympathy for these people, though. That kind of stuff might happen, but at some point, you have to say, hey, I got to do what's right. you got to come out and say.
Yeah, but when you're born into a family where your dad has sex with you and you don't know anything, how do you even?
That takes a lot of courage. I think that's unfortunately those people are few and far between. You see it occasionally, but very rarely.
But the people that start to come out, they're the ones that disappear. This is what's interesting.
Yeah. Okay, well, that's pretty much it for today. So
don't be scared for this. If you want to protect your kids, ask for it from the powers upstairs. It's the only protection we really have at the end of the day. This whole show is not to scare you. It is to get you to stamp a ticket off this prison planet because the doors are shutting soon. That's all I'm going to say.
Amen.
Get to know Jesus Christ.
This has been Down the Rabbit Hole. We'll see you next week.